Well, I think for my next personal log, just want to kind of share my evolution of my annual spring vacation. Here we're up to personal log number 82 here, as I'll share my evolution of my annual spring vacation. However, given what's been going on right now, there won't be an annual spring vacation this year in 2020 here, but in most years, under ideal circumstances, if I'm not moving, because I know I had a couple of years that I didn't have an annual spring vacation because I was busy with moving and real estate matters here. But generally, I would like to do a few holidays throughout the year here, where I have my spring holiday, which usually I like to do it in May around the Victoria Day weekend there. It started off with going a couple days before Victoria Day and then come back after Victoria Day. But as time goes on here, I definitely extended it to be a full week. Because I mean, ideally after a long winter here, you definitely need a little break here. And my annual spring vacation usually starts off my road trip season. And then I have my summer holiday where some years it might be my major highlight of the year, or decide to maybe catch some football games on the road here. But this year it's all up in the air, and I haven't made any plans because who knows if I'll make any, and then maybe try to do a few small trips in fall and then break up here. But I mean, this year there's definitely not going to be as much travel here. But one of the things I usually have done on my annual spring vacations, usually I go out to the Rockies in British Columbia here. I know I started off like one year I went to the Crozes Pass, but I was just a day trip there, and then another year I decided, well, I love going to Mount Robson, and I had my life-changing experience. Actually, that was my very first personal log where I talked about reflecting on it. It was 10 years when at that time, where I first went to Mount Robson, and it was a life-changing experience for me, and I share my feelings on that. And I've definitely been going every year at some point to Mount Robson. I mean, go in the summer, but I've gone in the spring, and I definitely, it's definitely a different experience here. And at some point I usually go in the spring or to Mount Robson, or I've also gone to the Okanagan Valley one time, but I had to cut that trip short there because my old personal car was having problems, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back on. It was time to do that carless lifestyle there, and I think that was number 74, I believe, where I talked about I've been carless since 2011, and it's more practical for me to rent a car, but mostly I go to Mount Robson and definitely see that Icefields Parkway Drive there. But one of the things that I do that's a tradition that I do on my annual spring vacation is I always go to Lake Louise. And I know that's definitely one of the sites that many people in Canada want to put on their list and say, I absolutely have to see Lake Louise. And here I'm only just over a couple hours away from going there, and it's always an impressive sight there. But the main reason why I always go to Lake Louise, I don't know if this sounds silly to you, but I go to Lake Louise on my annual spring vacation, and always, because my traditional first stop is just to see how much snow and ice is still there. Especially, with the kind of winter that we've had that year. And I've had some years where, there was still a ton of snow and ice there. And there was one year that I stopped there and I got a little nervous seeing all that snow and ice there. It was in 2014, and I remember that was a brutal winter where it was cold and snowy there, but that was a year after when the floods happened in Calgary there, where I was saying, oh, that's a lot of snow and ice. Eventually it's going to have to melt, and how the geographics work in Alberta there, the hydrography, that, the Bow River flows from there, and it was this thing, but that didn't happen in 2014 there, but it was still in your mind after what happened the year before there. Then I've had other years where I go to Lake Louise, this is all before Victoria Day, that I hardly see any snow and ice there. And I know that generally they say at the Chateau Lake Louise, where the famous hotel is that overlooks the lake there, generally they say it's around the final week of May, and let's say March there, May, that generally it's when all the snow and ice is gone, and you definitely see of the thought out lake there. So that's one of the things that I always have to do is go to Lake Louise as my tradition, just to see how much snow and ice is still there. I don't know. I seem to downplay. Oh, it's just Lake Louise. I'm just going there just to see how much snow and ice is still there. But it is impressive to see how many people go there, and you know, and people that come from much further places than I do. And sometimes a tourist might ask me where you're from, and I just say, oh, I'm just from Calgary, and it's just a couple hours, east of here. And then they say, oh, we've come from, this European country or Australia or, somewhere in Asia. And I'm like, wow. So that's just mind blowing to me there. But, the thing with my annual spring vacation there is that things are still thawing out, and, the Icefields Parkway, there's still some sites that, it still looks like it's still January when you see a lot of snow and ice still there. But that's why I also like to maybe try to go in the summer there, because I know one year that I stop at the various stops at lakes and glaciers. It's along the way on the Icefields Parkway, and I just happened to kept following, or I stop, and then a tour bus kept stopping, and then I asked the driver, the lead of the tour group, and I asked, what's your favorite month to see these sites here? And she actually said that September, I remember, at the time there, and I could see that because, you get the perfect turquoise blue lake, because it's the sediment in the rocks in the Rockies there that refracts that, turquoise blue color. And, you might say that's one of my other favorite colors, red's obviously my favorite color because all my teams were red, but I like that turquoise blue there. So that's all part of my annual spring vacation there. And then also the fact that I like to go, these sites here because it's still busy, but it's not ridiculously busy yet when it comes to the summer season in, the Banff and Jasper National Parks. And, I think more people are starting to catch on to my scheme when it comes to Valemount and the Mount Robson there, that it's also gotten a lot busier, more expensive there. They definitely need more hotels in that village. Because, there's actually a lot of bus tours. And I actually looked it up. There's a bus tour that actually, usually it's Asians that, it's an Asian league group that, they start in Vancouver. And then they actually bus to Valemount, and they start there overnight. And then they go back on the bus early the next morning to go to, Jasper, and eventually to go to Jasper and Banff, and then eventually back home there. And I mean, Valemount also is kind of the unofficial halfway point if you were driving from Edmonton to Vancouver as well there. But, it's definitely impressive how a small village, and I've seen it's evolved over the years. From my first visit there back in 2008 up to my last visit last fall there, that it's really evolved. And, it's definitely a beautiful way to get out of the big city there. And it is still impressive that you get people that come from like much further places than I do just to go there and see it. And it's all part of my annual spring vacation. Mostly it is going to Mount Robson in the spring there. I know the last couple of years when I stretched it out to be a full week there, because I definitely felt I needed that week instead of just partially half a week there. And I try to get most of my activities in before the long weekend where it gets busier. But I've gone to Kamloops the last couple of years. Just to see the other Okanagan city that, because I've been to Kelowna a lot more times, growing up in the past there. But Kamloops definitely is definitely a different experience there. And, that's where you get that kind of first taste of summer before summer makes its way out here. I know a couple of years ago, there was record highs where it was already 30 degrees there. And actually my spring holiday in 2018 actually was hotter than my summer holiday, because when I went back to Mount Robson there that one year there, that's when all those wildfires in, and definitely was spent a lot more time inside than I wanted to because of the smoke, and it does bother my respiratory there, with that asthma there. But you're just breathing in that, and it's like yeah, and then it just ruined the scenery there. But it is what it is. You plan it out. But that's the one thing that's somewhat nice about going in the spring there was because you don't get the wildfires there. However, there were definitely a lot of familiar feelings and sights about floods there because when it was suddenly over 30 degrees and you got the snowpack in that Okanagan Valley there was definitely some floods there. And one thing that I have done when I was in Kamloops there is I stayed downtown. Actually, that Plaza Hotel, I love that old Plaza Hotel. I'm definitely a sucker for those old hotels, and actually that seemed to be the hotel of choice if you did that Rocky Mountaineer, because I definitely saw a few of that. But you know, you're right in the heart of downtown Kamloops, and then you walk to the Riverside Park there, where you see the tops of rivers meet there. So that's where it's a different experience from Kamloops and Kelowna. Here is that in Kamloops you got the Lake Okanagan, but then in Kamloops, Kelowna is the lake, Kamloops is the rivers. But you know, it's still huge and massive that it almost looks like a lake there. But actually, in 2018 there where it was hot and actually went up to cool off a bit in Mount Robson there. Actually, the Riverside Park was closed the next day. Actually, after I checked out, because you know, the waters are rising. Because when I went the next year, I definitely saw the big difference from water levels. So you know, there's always, you know, some kind of brisk, or you know, you never know what the weather's going to be like when you go. But you know, it's just basically the evolution of my annual spring vacation. That usually it used to be either leave like on a Wednesday or Thursday before Victoria Day, and then come home Sunday, because I always like to come home Sunday instead of Monday there, because of trying to beat the traffic, and Sunday seems to be that optimum day, because I'm thinking if people are going to go out, they've already gone out, and if people are going to go home, that they were going to go home the next day there. So that's why I leave to go home on Sunday there, and then at least have Monday to somewhat unwind before you get back to work there. But then that's where I extended it out to be a full week, where a week before Victoria Day, that's when I like to go out. But what things going on right now, and I mean, I did originally plan there was going to be a high school reunion, so I figured I wasn't going to do an annual spring vacation this year, but other events have changed that. But you know, hopefully there'll be some more annual spring vacations in the future here. You know, I try to find different ways to do different activities every year, so that's just my evolution of it. But it always starts off with my and I've called it my tradition now, where I go to Lake Louise just to see how much snow and ice is there. I mean, I don't mean to seem to downplay it, but I mean, it's right in the backyard. I mean, obviously I'd like to see Niagara Falls. That'd be one site I'd like to see in Canada, but that's, you know, too far away. And that's the thing when you live in a big, vast country here. And the problem is it's too expensive to fly there, because I can't, you know, necessarily plan to drive there, because I need 3 days just to drive there. And then you got 3 days to at least drive back. So you're spending a week just driving. And then it's like, well, if you're going to spend all that time driving, you need to have a couple days just to justify being there from all that driving. And I mean, that's fine. It's definitely too expensive domestically here. But there's lots of other sites that I want to see in the country that people down there could say, oh, I'm just going to Niagara Falls. I mean, I guess you could say that for me when it comes to Banff and Lake Louise. But that's just my tradition. I just want to see how much snow and ice is there. So as I say, that's my personal blog, number 82, about the evolution of my annual spring vacation here. So if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey, home of the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders, you know what you need to do. Just make sure you hit like, subscribe. I obviously talk mostly Calgary sports and other sports. As a sports fan here, I also do personal blogs where I talk about anything, or maybe something that's, you know, timed right now, like this. And I also do some attempt at comedy, and I also share my experience. Let's say I'm at the road or at a sporting event there, and definitely have lots of experiences from, let's say, past annual spring vacations there. So if that sounds like y'all be interested in to follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey, just make sure you like, subscribe. I also have my other social media links down in the description below there, where I do have some memories from past, let's say, annual spring vacations there. And I might have posted a few pictures of, you know, this is what Lake Louise looks like right now to kick off my tradition of my annual spring vacation here. So as I say, I'll see you in the next video here.